President Trump now formally has nominated acting Attorney General Todd Blanche to serve in that role permanently. Blanche, who of course previously was President Trump's personal defense attorney, could face a contentious confirmation battle in the Senate. Republican Senators Thom Tillis and John Cornyn both said last week they have questions that need to be answered before they can support Blanche for the role full time. Without any support from Democrats, Republicans can only afford to lose 3 votes and still have the number they need to approve Blanche's nomination, with Vice President J.D. Vance breaking a potential tie. Meanwhile, as President Trump seemingly turns the Department of Justice into one of his most aggressive weapons during his second term, our next guest has an inside look at how it happened. Joining us now, 4-time Pulitzer Prize-winning reporter for the New York Times, Devlin Barrett. He's out today with a new book titled The Department of Revenge: How Trump Took Control of American Justice. Devlin, good morning. Congratulations on the book. Obviously, there was some of this in the first term, but as you write in the book, much, much more aggressive, almost from day one of this second term. So how did this administration begin to blur and now, frankly, eliminate the line between the White House and the Department of Justice?
Well, they did it by really reaching into the gears, the actual machinery of the Justice Department, and removing people they didn't trust and didn't want there anymore, and replacing them with a new system where there weren't really nearly as many internal checks on how they operated. So they got rid of, for example, for all practical purposes, the public integrity section. That had huge consequences across the Justice Department and how it investigated corruption. And they also created essentially a direct line from the White House, not just to the Attorney General's office, not just to the Deputy Attorney General's office, but through the various parts of the machinery of justice. And that has had sweeping consequences for the department.
And what does that open the door to? Who so far has Trump exacted revenge on? I can name a few.
Right. I mean, I think the most obvious one that most people recognized at the time was James Comey, because they've gone after him multiple times. The book traces how they kept going after him. They kept looking for ways to go after him, even when career prosecutors said there wasn't really a good case here. I think the other thing that even people inside the department didn't quite grasp when all this change started happening is not just that the department would stop going after the possible corruption of people they liked, but that they would seek so much revenge. And that's the Comey case, that's the Letitia James case, the New York Attorney General. There's a whole host of cases in which not just senior officials, but the president himself has demanded the Justice Department go after people.
We saw the Truth Social DM to Pam Bondi that he inadvertently posted for all to see. Devlin, congrats on the book. We know about Stephen Miller being a very powerful aide and certainly the sway he holds over immigration enforcement. But your book has some really new reporting. He actually has also outsized influence at DOJ.
Absolutely. And one of the things that was fascinating to me in the reporting was figuring out that in the transition period, Stephen Miller told the prospective lawyers who might be running the department for the Trump administration that they would answer to him and they would take instruction from him. And you've seen that play out. You've seen how much control Stephen Miller, how much direction Stephen Miller gives to both the FBI and the Justice Department.
Devlin, how permanent is this? Imagine we have a new president at some point. We will. To what extent has the culture, has the personnel gone beyond the point where it easily becomes, if you will, goes back to the Department of Justice?
Right. I think some of this is permanent. The Supreme Court immunity decision sort of opens the door for a lot of this, no matter who the president is. I think that's a very alarming thing to a lot of career prosecutors and agents. But I also think there are possibilities and avenues to undo some of this and to sort of get back to a common understanding of what corruption is. The tax division, for example, no longer exists. But there are laws in place passed by Congress that prevent the misuse of tax information by the Justice Department. I think that's one potential avenue. It's difficult, obviously. Congress, on many days looks and feels like a corpse.
Yeah.
But there are things that can be done, certainly.
Yeah. Willie.
Devlin, when you mentioned them a minute ago, career prosecutors, people who've been in the Department of Justice, apolitical actors for their entire careers who've been either let go or resigned because of what they've watched happen. What is the morale, though, among those who still are there trying to prosecute criminal cases when they're being pressured almost every day to go on these goose chases to satisfy the president?
I think you have to think of the Justice Department as a place under tremendous strain and turmoil. But there are lots of people who are doing lots of things that aren't political cases that are able to function perfectly well. I think that the challenge is all of those people never know when they might get the phone call or they might get the email that says they have to drop what they're doing and pick up a case that feels very political and maybe just plain wrong. That's the challenge in front of them. And look, I think what you've seen is tremendous turmoil and turnover at the department, and that's had a huge negative effect on morale. But what I try to do in the book is explain that this isn't about the Justice Department with a capital J. This isn't about a sign on the building. This is about lowercase justice. This is about right and wrong, and this is about what kind of law enforcement system do we want to have.
Thank you for writing the book. The new book out today is titled The Department of Revenge, How Trump Took Control of American Justice. Author and award-winning reporter with the New York Times, Devlin Barrett. Thanks. It's great to have you on the show.
Thanks.